Mayor Mark Sukup,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Here.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Here.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Here.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Here. Melissa, do we got any public comments that anybody is going to call in on?
I do not believe we have any. Council has received the written comments that have come in.
So if anybody in the future, as we do these videos, anybody in the future that wants to make a public comment, submit it to public comment at timnath.gov or timnathgov.com, and we'll contact you on how to do that and get on and make, if you want, a public comment in person. Otherwise, you're definitely encouraged to submit any public comment. We have those and they're attached to the agenda. Is that right, Melissa?
Yeah, they will be included in the final approved minutes from tonight's meeting.
Awesome, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, consent agenda 4.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think we have amendments to the agenda for number 2.
Oh, we did. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's see. Oh, that's right. Go ahead, Wesley.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Staff making a recommendation that we pull item 5A, ordinance number 5, series 2020, off the consent agenda and move it to business. That would be 8AA. And then we'll allow public comment and ask our fire chief, I think, is requested to make some comments there. So if it's the council's pleasure, staff recommends that we pull 5A from the consent agenda, ordinance number 5, and place it under business under 8A. Thank you, sir.
Is that information only? We don't need to vote or anything on that, do we?
No vote.
No. Okay, great. Okay, consent agenda 4. Any comments? Okay, Melissa, do you want to roll call vote?
Yes.
We need public comments though, don't we?
Not on consent agenda payables.
We need a motion.
No,
Oh,
but the public comments are before the consent agenda.
We already did it.
Aren't they going to be read into the record like they have before?
No, they're part of the packet. Anybody can sit there and read it that wants to read it. The only reason we did it before, Aaron, was that since it was the first times that we were doing electronic, we wanted everybody to make sure that we covered it. But now that everybody sort of got hopefully everybody's got the rhythm of this, no need to do that.
But there were comments that came in this afternoon that should be read into the record.
Robert,
Councilor Pearson,
on that?
Councilor Pearson, we changed the notice procedures in advance of this meeting. So you'll see that on the agenda, we noted that there was going to be a change in the procedures and that we were going to stop doing the reading of the entire letter into the record and provided members of the public the opportunity to either call in and to participate verbally in the Zoom meeting the way that they've always had the opportunity to, or in the alternative to provide written comments that would be included in the meeting packet and provided for the council's information. But we were going to start doing that in lieu of requiring a staff person to actually read those comments into the record.
Well, I disagree with the practice. I mean, there's letters from 2 developers talking about something that's on our agenda tonight, and it seems like the public should be able to hear those.
Well, they have an opportunity to be heard by joining the Zoom meeting and have both been invited to do that.
Okay, I just want to be on record that I don't agree with this change. It certainly wasn't brought up to me. I don't know if it was to the other council people or not, but.
Well, and I haven't had a chance to read those yet either, because they came in late today. So even as a council member, I don't know what some of those are yet, just because I haven't read them.
Robert, I'm looking it to you.
Well, there's certainly, if it's the council's pleasure, and if two or more members of the council wish to have those comments read into the record, that's certainly a council prerogative. You can do it that way, absolutely.
So Aaron, you would request that they be read in the record?
Well, I do. I mean, even I wasn't aware of this change, and I'm a council person. So,
Lisa, do you want it read into the record?
I would like that, at least the ones that can't come in last minute, just because I don't always, I checked my email this morning. I think I read the first couple, but then I haven't had a chance to look at it. Anything that came in late this afternoon.
Wes, do you have somebody that can read those in?
I think we do. Brian, is that possible? Or do you have those accessible at your fingertips? Okay. Do you mind if it's it appears it's the council's pleasure. So Mayor, with your permission, I'll ask Brian to read. I think it was Councilman Pearson. Do you know which two you're referring to?
well, there was two that came in from the developers that are talking about the police building, which is going to be an item for discussion later in the agenda.
Okay, so I think those are from Mr. Harrison.
Public should be able to hear those.
Okay, so I think those are from Mr. Harrison and from Hartford Homes.
Pat McMeekin.
Yeah.
Would you guys prefer that I just read them all into the record? I mean, they're
I think you either have to read, I think we have to read all of them if we're going to read any of them.
I agree. Thank you, sir.
All right, I'm gonna start with the first one we received. This one actually came in quite a while ago on Wednesday, May 13th. It is from Lori Frost Moore, and the question is, has the town completed any revenue projections in order to predict what budget cuts will be required in the coming fiscal year? It appears that all state, county, and local governments should be preparing for significant revenue shortfalls. Have a great day, Lori Frost Moore. And then the second one that was in the morning batch came from Jamie Bone. And it says, hello, we are Timnath residents and bought a boat permit to use our motorized boat on Timnath Reservoir. We have actually bought a permit for the last 4 years and never had a problem getting on the lake. Today was very frustrating. When we got to the lake, we couldn't get on. I realized that it is a first come, first serve, but it was full by 10 a.m. I feel that with many places being closed for travel and activities due to COVID-19, many people will be boating this season. What are the chances that we can open up boating 7 days a week? I feel with the lake open only for motorized boats Thursday through Saturdays and a few Sundays, it will be a fight every Saturday to get on the lake. The price we pay to boat on Timnath is very expensive. It makes us really frustrated when we can't even use what we paid for. I feel like all the boaters are very courteous and respectful boaters, and it shouldn't be an issue to open up the lake 7 days a week for 4 months out of the year. Actually, the lake is usually pretty gross with algae or water levels are too low by early to mid-August, so it's really only 3 to 3.5 months of the year. Thanks for considering opening up the lake for more days to use boats. Thanks, Brandon and Jamie Bone. I'm sorry, that one was received on Saturday, May 23rd. So that was the day she was having the problem. They were having the problem. And then we did receive a couple later this afternoon. This one is from Jonathan Maxfield, and it came in today at 11:53. Hello, City Council. We currently reside in Timnath Ranch and use the reservoir for wakeboarding and water skiing. We truly appreciate the opportunity to have access to a wonderful reservoir. We are seeing the use go up year after year, and this is our 4th season with a motorized boat pass. I was always under the assumption that we could use the lake only on a limited basis because of the staffing at the lake. I found out recently that the reservoir is staffed 7 days a week. I feel having access to boat more days a week would be beneficial for everyone. This would help reduce crowds over the weekend days and less boats would be turned away or sitting in line to get on the lake. I hope you look into opening the access to the lake 7 days a week. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you, the Maxfield family. The second email in the afternoon grouping was from Craig Harrison. And this was directed to the town manager. Wes, please read this memo for me at tonight's town council meeting. I read the memo on the town's agenda that I received late Sunday afternoon for this evening's council meeting with great disappointment that the town is not able to make the existing Riverbend police station site work for its future use. Having spent considerable amount of time starting in 2012 with the town center concept, I can understand that maybe time has proven the need for a larger site. It was a very good strategic location at the time, since a police station is a more institutional type structure than you would anticipate an architecturally strong image builder to be on Harmony Road. With that said, I would urge the town to consider another Timnath location set back off of Harmony Road rather than building on the prime commercial fuel property key to the tax revenue of the town. I'm attaching for your review your January 2016 concept quotation marks pitch package quotation mark book prepared by the town showing the commercial oriented uses for the fuel tract, which again would be tax revenue generators for the town. The second issue I would like to point out is your newly approved Harmony Corridor design standards along with building materials. Please refer to 5.10.1 of developing a distinct entry and commercial corridor to highlight Timnath. In my opinion, the desired, quote, upscale agrarian native prairie design aesthetic, quote, seems difficult to achieve with a police station. Other challenges to consider could be the building material standards, which focus on brick, natural and manufactured stone, and architectural metal with a limitation of no more than 25% stucco. Prohibited materials are concrete block, tilt-up concrete panels, prefab metal building systems, and a few other items. Although the 5.10.3 waiver process allows a waiver from any standard in the design review section per the Timnath Land Use Code 2.9.15 and as approved by Town Council, it might undermine the intent of the design standards as other development projects follow yours, since yours will be the first built under these guidelines and probably need numerous waivers. I would urge the Town Council to consider that although the town already owns the fuel property, the police station may not be the best use for being next to the most important non-interstate commercial intersection in the town's future. Regards, Craig Harrison, President, Harrison Resource Corporation. And then the final email was received today at 4:42, and that is from Patrick McMeekin from Hartford Homes. Dear Mayor and Town and Council members, unfortunately, I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting as we were just made aware of this item, but please read into the record please read this into the record during the public comment portion of tonight's meeting and include it in the meeting minutes. It has come to our attention in reviewing the agenda for tonight's meeting that the town intends to look at utilizing a portion of the town commercial property, which they purchased from us, for the construction of the Timnath Police Station. This is concerning to us. The original intent of this sale was for the town to subsidize the property to speed up commercial retail development of the parcel. We agreed to sell the property to the town below market value because there was a value to us and our future homeowners to see the site develop sooner rather than later for commercial/retail uses. We actually oriented the whole project to create a pedestrian corridor so the homeowners would walk to the retail center from all areas of the project. We have sold this vision to both existing and future homeowners and our building partners. We have made statements to our buyers regarding surrounding land uses, and we feel such the need to notify them as this proposed change is so that they have the opportunity to voice their concerns. I have attached our purchase agreement where in paragraph 21 and paragraph 21A clearly require the town to involve us in joint visioning for the property, which includes allowable land uses. Further, it's clearly stated that we perceived as additional consideration the statements made prior as an enticement to sell the property. To date, we have not received any requests for a visioning session or for thoughts on proposed land uses from the property from the town or its contractors. We believe if the town chooses this path, there will be negative impacts to our metropolitan district and commitments the town has made. Additionally, not having amenity of a retail center guts the project land we were working so hard to achieve. The last we heard, the current town police station parcel was too small to serve the needs of the town, and at that time, staff made a request to purchase part of our senior living parcel from a pending user to accommodate their needs. Our third-party buyer attempted to accommodate that request with a submittal they recently made to the town. Please see the attached site plan indicating the additional area necessary for the police station in the southwest corner of the site. This is prime Harmony Corridor commercial retail frontage and a potential property and sales tax producing asset. Forever converting it to a non-income producing asset would diminish its potential. Most municipalities covet their retail ground and do whatever they can to protect anything going in that would jeopardize their ability to collect sales tax. A lot of municipalities would also give anything to have a road like Harmony that is the daily traffic that retailers desire and need to make their projects work. We are worried that if the town sets this standard of utilizing prime commercial ground for municipal uses, it will likely sanitize the rest of the Trailside Harmony Road frontage and further degrade your asset. We would like to request that the use of the fuel commercial parcel be stricken from consideration for the future police station and would like to schedule our required joint visiting session immediately. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, Patrick McMeekin, Vice President of Land Development and partner at Hartford Homes.
Thanks, Brian. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda payables?
So moved that we approve the consent agendas.
Second, please.
Second.
Will you take a roll call vote, Melissa?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Recuse.
It doesn't have TNT on there.
Oh, there's no TNT in there?
I don't think there's any TNT on this week's.
Okay, yes.
Let's check and make sure with Wes, but I think there's no TNT.
I think that's correct.
Okay,
So you don't have to recuse this one.
okay. Then I'll vote yes. Consent agenda, first reading. We've pulled 5A. So we're looking at 5B, 5C, and 5D. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Do you want to take a roll call vote, Melissa?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Hey, Wesley, do you want to spend a minute or two explaining when we have these ordinances, but yet they're on a consent agenda, why they're on a consent agenda?
Sure, and I'll look to Mr. Rogers to correct me. Basically, the town charter requires 2 readings for ordinances. And in effect, what we do is we put the public on notice on the first reading that this item is going to come up at a second meeting. And at that meeting, there will be a public hearing and public comment on those ordinances. So it, at least in a practical standpoint, just serves as notice as what is coming in front of the board for consideration, adoptions, or adjustments, amendments, those kinds of things, and that there will be a public hearing usually at the next council meeting. So, Robert, anything to add to that?
Nothing to add.
Okay, thanks a lot. Consent agenda 6, all other. Any comments? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Melissa?
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Next, we got reports. Those are all pretty detailed. Town Manager Wesley, is there any comments your staff would like to make on any of those?
No, sir, we have no further additions at this time. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mark, if I could just make a quick comment about the report that I had in there. The NOCA Strong Committee, there, a lot of the neighboring municipalities have drafted a letter that's being sent to the state so that we can request as a group of Northern Colorado communities. We felt like they would be a better, we would have a little more say as if we all combined as a group. So letter that's attached to this packet that's going to the governor, and I'm hoping that you've had a chance to read it and that you would give a head nod that we can send this from the town to join the other municipalities so that we can try to lobby for some of this money that's going to be passed out.
Thanks for interjecting in there, Aaron. I'm sorry, I went right by it.
No
So,
problem.
Yeah, no, that was great. So there is a letter in there and that all the Northern Colorado communities would like us to go along with. And Brett, would you like to make a comment?
Just had a just good question to make sure I fully understand the intent of the letter. It's there's funding the federal government has given to the state, and we have Northern Colorado municipalities that are banding together to ask the state to distribute that money more to local governments to cover the costs of local government expenses.
That's correct, Aaron. Town manager, would you mind I know that you know just a little bit more information on this as far as how it comes with DOLA, because DOLA, the Department of Affairs for local municipalities that we're with, they're the ones that are going to be deciding where this money goes. So that would go to them so they can help in that. Is that correct, town manager?
Right, that's correct. So what we're basically doing, as Councilman Pearson stated, is that we are putting our elected officials at the state, but even at the federal government, on notice that municipalities across the state, particularly in Northern Colorado, are experiencing some significant impairments as far as their revenue is. And so we're asking that as they allocate those monies, that monies would in fact be set aside for local governments. That would be cities, towns, counties, special districts, those kind of things. So we feel that in banding together and signing on to this letter, and I think every municipality up and down this corridor, as part of the No Code Strong, has signed on to it already because where they fall in their council meetings. And so Leah was asking actually just a little bit ago what we were going to do with that. So that would just put them on notice that we think it's important that some monies be set aside. We did get some information from Department of Local Affairs that there appears to be traction in this, and that some money is in fact likely to be set aside even for Larimer County. I'll speak to that a little later on the grant side of things, where some of these costs may actually be eligible for reimbursement. But yes, in effect, we're banding together. We're putting the state on notice that we believe some of those funds need to come back to local jurisdictions to make them whole.
Aaron, my understanding is also that it is more powerful if all of us in Northern Colorado take part in this letter that was drafted by a few of the other members of Northern Colorado than if it was piecemeal.
Absolutely, yes. And we've seen great success with that in the past, especially in like the I-25 expansion. A lot of the municipalities have joined up then, all pledged some money together. And because of that action, we were able to, well, most people feel that action definitely helped for us to get some matching funds and some more attention from the federal and state governments so that we could get that project on the books and started.
Unless there's an objection, we should say that it was unanimously agreed to.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'll make sure I relay that to No Code Strong.
Thank you.
Thanks for interjecting there. Is there any other council person that'd like to make a comment under reports? Okay. That takes us to 8AA, and 8AA used to be 5A, which is an ordinance amending Chapter 7 of the Municipal Code, ordinance number 5, Series 2020. And I understand that Police Chief DeMett would like to make comments on this. So, Police Chief, would you like to comment now? I said police, sorry, Fire Chief, sorry.
No problem. Mayor and Council, I think I've met most of you, at least by phone, but that some of you I've worked with for a very long time, well, with staff, and I've worked with Chief Jones for a long time as well. Thank you for this opportunity to speak this evening about the fireworks ordinance changes you are considering. And as your fire protection provider, the Tutor Fire Authority, we did adopt the International Fire Code for the town of Timnath on our last adoption, which has a very exclusively stated ban on the sales, possession, and use of fireworks. And the town of Timnath adopted that at the time. And here to encourage your consideration, your discernment. This is your decision, and we will help you in whatever path you choose as a council. However, what the thing that we would like to point out, this is going into the code for the purposes of safety. From the fact of fires, we do see an increase in fires around even the safe and sane fireworks that are used and that are allowed in Colorado in certain communities and in Larimer County. I spoke with Brett earlier today, with Mayor Sukup as well, about a fire we had. It's been 9 years ago. It's anecdotal, but a fire that a smoke bomb, a simple one of those little paper smoke bombs, caused a group of juniper bushes in front of a house to ignite, starting fire into the structure and blocking the egress path of those inside the home. Fortunately, they did make it out. But those are the kind of dangers we see. Vegetation is being a resident of Timnath with y'all, knowing that there are a lot of open spaces, and as the grasses start to cure, we see an increase in the number of fires caused by fireworks in those. And in this time of COVID, any time that starts drawing down our resources where we're chasing fires that have been started by fireworks. Injuries, we do a little bit of tracking of injuries with UC Health. With the safe and sane fireworks, as they're called in Colorado, the injuries, we don't see the blast injuries. Those usually are coming from people that are using the fireworks that they import from Wyoming. But we still see the burn injuries from the type of spark emissions that most of the fireworks get. And the other thing that we want to consider is probably not so much in the physical safety realm, but is in the safety realm of the calmness of our neighborhoods. And we've been very successful in a campaign about pets and vets. And that's not the vets that take care of the pets, that's our veterans. We do have some veterans in our communities that try to find a place to go for some quiet during the period of the 4th, because of the things that some of those fireworks can cause. And the other part is pets. We've been very successful in the last couple of years in Fort Collins, which has had the ban for many, many years, but going to a social media and a pub ad campaign with yard signs, social media, and some press releases talking about the damage that it can do to a pet, damage it can do to some of our veterans who experience some PTSD, and trying to create some calm around those folks. What hasn't worked in the past, and I think Chief Jones can validate this, is strict enforcement. I'll be the first to tell you, we have sent inspectors, we've sent fire engines, we've sent cops trying to catch people, and it's pretty easy to see the black and white coming around a corner, or a big red and white fire truck coming around a corner, and all of a sudden I don't know where that firework was coming from. So strict enforcement is really tough. But public education, we feel has worked very well. The other thing in public education that we've done out going into the city limits of Fort Collins, which is the only area in the Food or Fire Authority other than Timnath that has this ban in place currently, is signage that says fireworks are illegal inside the city limits. We do work in the county where fireworks are legal in unincorporated Larimer County. We work with the Sheriff's Department on enforcement of those illegal fireworks that are brought in from Wyoming, as well as working with the fireworks vendors. We have our own amendments for the requirements for those stands. So kind of in closing, to sum this up quickly, is we definitely understand the joy of fireworks, and I really appreciate the work this town board is doing, or town council is doing, to bring on the commercial fireworks display. That is our encouragement, is leave the fireworks up to the pros. And Timnath has a wonderful fireworks display. And in our neighborhood here, we can just go right over to the new park that's coming, go right over to that area, and you get a great view of everything that's being shot off. And it's a wonderful display. It brings a lot of excitement and joy of the fireworks. I understand there is that joy of a family event around fireworks, but that doesn't come without dangers. And the slight emotional appeal is there's memories created. Most of us are old enough here and have memories with fireworks. But unfortunately, in our business, some of the memories that we have to deal with are not those fond memories; they're the more tragic memories. And like I said, we're not here to stand in the way. We are here to help with whatever decision this council determines. But we will be back on the second reading, and I'll bring back more hard data that we have gathered over the years through our work and understanding of fireworks. That's all I have.
Fire Chief Demand, thanks so much for taking all the time to be here and fill in.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brett, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but would you like to say anything on this ordinance?
Sure. I spoke with Chief Dement mentioned this. We spoke on the phone a bit earlier today too, and I certainly liked a lot of his ideas regarding educational outreach. I tend to err on the side of ordinances that we have in place. I think we should intend to enforce them, and if we don't intend to enforce them, then I struggle to see the need to set up the law that way. And I think I like the idea of trusting our residents, encouraging people through social media, through education to talk to their neighbors and look for those neighbors that have particularly sensitive needs. I am sensitive to that, and I don't want to cause undue stress or suffering for anybody. But I think we live in a pretty responsible community and a pretty caring community, and I think we can figure out a middle ground between outright bans and a free-for-all. So just my general thoughts.
Thanks, Brett. Does anybody else like to make any comments? Okay, now this is a notice for this ordinance. If we approve it, it'll come back to council next meeting for passing as a resolution. So what we're dealing with right now is do we agree with it as to carry it forward, talk about more and have a public hearing on June 9th or not?
Correct. Yes, sir.
I would make the motion that we move it to the next meeting.
In other words, you'd like to make a motion to approve the notice.
Yeah, move it, approve the ordinance so it goes to the next meeting.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Let's go ahead. Melissa, go ahead and take a roll call vote on that.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Brett. That takes us to Resolution 38, Series 2020, regarding the grant program. And Town Manager West, do you want to start that, or?
Yes, sir. I'll take a first swing at it, and then I'll of course invite Councilman Hansen, Pearson, and our town attorney Robert Rogers to weigh in. So at the last meeting, council had some discussion in reference to the potential of setting up a grant for small businesses in Timnath. It's decided at that time, after some discussion, that the council would form, in essence, kind of a working group to look at what other communities were doing and what might be applicable here in Timnath. So Councilman Pearson and Councilman Hansen worked together with staff, including the town's finance director, myself, the town's attorney's office, to review some other programs out there, particularly the one in Berthoud and Johnstown, and to come up with some working recommendations. In front of you tonight for consideration is a resolution that would in fact do that, set up or establish a small business relief grant program. The key points are listed in your council packet, and particularly the business would, or it's anticipated that the awards would range between $500 and $7,500 for a total not to exceed $50,000. The businesses must have had an active town business license prior to March 10th of this year, be in good standing, be located in a commercially zoned area of town, Also be able to demonstrate a decline in revenue between 2019, December 2019 and April 2020. And so what would happen if should this be the pleasure of the council's applications will be reviewed and the grants amount determined by, in essence, what will function as a grant committee that will be comprised of myself, the town's finance director, and the two members of council previously stated, Councilman Hanson and Councilman Pearson. Complete applications must be submitted by June 3rd, and the town would anticipate distributing grants by June 12th and then reporting back to council its decisions. I think that's all I have, unless I'm missing something, either Councilman Hanson or Councilman Pearson.
Yes, I'd like just to tack on, you already briefly mentioned it earlier, but there may be an opportunity for us through some grant money to get reimbursement for a small business grant program. Some of the municipalities may be able to do that. So we did look into the matching funds prospect, but there was nothing there to be had. That we talked to many of the other communities during the No Call Strong meeting, both the town manager and I. It doesn't appear that there's any of those out there, but there may be a chance that we can get this reimbursed by the federal government.
Thank you, Councilman Pearson. Correct. Councilman Collins had recommended us looking at grant programs out there. So we did. We searched. We actually engaged the No Call Strong group and our peers there to find out if they had access to any matching grants. They did not. But however, having said that, because Councilman Collins kind of prompted us, we did a little digging and come to find out our northern representatives for the Department of Local Affairs, DOLA, has made us aware that it appears that some of the distribution that the state may make to counties, including Larimer County, would include funds that would potentially allow us to reimburse ourselves for any grant monies that we give to businesses pursuant to the federal legislation and the CARES Act. So we're still looking at that. The managers in Larimer County are actually getting together, well, virtually, sorry, tomorrow at 4:30 with the county manager, Linda Hoffman. We're going to work through a little more of these details and try to figure out what money may be coming to us and exactly those eligibility issues surrounding that. But I was encouraged by the initial conversation. There does appear that there may be an avenue for some, if not all, of the reimbursement.
Great, thanks much. Anybody else have a comment on this?
Yeah, I just had a question. Were we able to tie down how many businesses we're actually talking about?
Yes, I think we did. Councilman Pearson, you saw that email go out. Would you refresh my memory? I think there's about 15. Is that right?
I think that's correct. I think there were 15 that match our criteria, but we don't know about their financial status. But just the initial criteria that we could, look up through town records, we're looking at roughly 15. But some of those may have more employees than what we had initially in there. So there's just a few things that we don't have answers for from the businesses, but a max of 15. And I think more likely, if you sort of narrow it down, we're probably more looking roughly around 10.
I think that's
Aaron, are you really concerned about the deadline's pretty quick, June 3rd, for the application? Are we going to have any kind of wiggle room on that, or is this the kind of thing where we think these people are already waiting?
I already know that they're waiting.
So that's good.
And looking at what the other municipalities have done, they have all done it in a pretty short time frame, a week or so. I know that if this were to pass, then there's going to be an email to those 15 businesses going out tomorrow morning that will state, hey, this was approved last evening. These are the criteria. Here's the online application link. So they will have notice very quickly tomorrow if it were to pass tonight.
Great. Thank you.
We also worked pretty hard to try and filter down the requirements in terms of what documentation we're providing, just really focusing on exactly how we were going to make our decisions and trying to make the application process less onerous, less burdensome for people.
Great. Any other comments? Do I have a motion to approve resolution 38?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, Melissa?
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. All right, resolution 39, resolution approving the membership goals and responsibilities of the town finance committee. Town attorney Rogers, you want to talk about that?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of the committee would be to formulate recommendations regarding the accuracy of the town's financial information and whether that information is meeting the needs of the community. There would be no more than 7 voting members on the committee, up to two of which could be council members, and the balance would be non-council residents. In addition to the voting members, there would be 2 non-voting ex officio members. That would be the town manager and the finance director. Terms for all the voting members would be 2-year terms with a limit of 2 consecutive complete terms. Meetings would be held quarterly and would be subject to open meetings and public record, and all the records of the committee would be subject to public record laws. The specific tasks of the committee would be to review proposed loans and other financings and make recommendations to the council before the council enters into those types of obligations, and to analyze the need for rotation of auditors, to interview auditors when it is time to make a rotation, and make recommendations to the council, and to review and respond to the town management letter, and then to provide a recommendation to accept the audited annual financial statements of the town. Advantages of the committee would be that it would encourage resident participation and financial transparency and responsibility. Financial implications are that the committee would have limited access to town resources as needed, determined by the town manager, and town staff would also be used to assist with the administration of the committee. One other financial implication note is the committee members would not be compensated. If there are any other questions regarding the resolution, we'd be happy to address them.
Council member Lisa Lake.
I just have a quick question about, it's kind of a logistic question about the terms. Since it's a new committee, I was wondering about having this first go round, having some members as a 3-year term, so that then it's kind of staggered, so that you always have someone from the community on there who's been on there previously. So even if it was just this first time where a couple people maybe had a 3-year or even shorter, do a 1-year or something, just to kind of stagger, so that you're not getting a complete new group every 2 years, is just a suggestion.
Which is one we admittedly had not thought about, but one that we could easily incorporate.
Any other comments? I'm excited about this one, obviously, and it's something I was amazed that we didn't have one in the town governance before this, so I think it's past due. Do I have, let's see.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question? So we had identified had we identified a council liaison for this committee? We had at a previous meeting, correct?
Well, yes, I think it was me, but I think we are going to vote on the entire membership of the Metro District Committee and the Parks Committee once we get going, is my understanding. And town manager's nodding, so I think I'm right.
So what I was going to suggest is that since we already have you designated, if the council wanted to move forward with this and approve it tonight, they could delegate to you the authority to sign off on the stagger schedule once we get a draft in front.
Okay. I was going to ask you if we needed to amend anything, or what would you suggest? Because I think everybody was nodding that they agreed with Councilmember Lake's suggestion on that.
So if you wanted to do it that way, I think the motion would just be to approve the resolution and to delegate to the liaison, Mayor Sukup, the administrative authority to approve the staggering schedule.
Okay. So do you do that in two motions or one?
You could do it in one. You could make one.
One motion.
Okay. All right. So do I have a motion to approve Resolution 39?
So moved, and allow the mayor to do the staggering, have the ability to stagger the terms in it.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Town Clerk, Melissa, can you do roll call vote?
You're on mute.
Melissa, you're on mute.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Okay, Resolution 40 for the formation of a Metro District Ad Hoc Committee. And Town Attorney Rogers, do you want to talk about that?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this committee would be to facilitate information sharing, communication, and participation of residents on Metro District boards within the town. This committee would be an ad hoc committee, so it would sunset after the committee makes advisory recommendations to the town council, which would be anticipated by October 31st, 2020. The specific focus of the community as it's moving toward these recommendations would be to review the service plan template, the town's template, and make recommendations regarding improvements to provide opportunities and materials to educate residents, to identify ways to facilitate and encourage resident involvement, whether through boards or Metro District committees, et cetera. And then to perform outreach to develop a better understanding of resident concerns. The membership for this committee would again be no more than 7, up to 2 of which would be from the council, the balance of which would submit applications. And for those up to 5 seats, the council would give a preference to residents, but would strive to include 1 to 2 members of the with specific expertise relevant to metro districts. And an example that's included in the staff report would be if there were a metro district management company that had a representative that could participate and provide insights on what's workable and what's not from a boots on the ground management perspective. If there are any questions regarding, I'll note that we don't have a staggering schedule on this one. So if the council would like to get one incorporated, we could achieve that administratively the same way that we just did for the Finance Committee.
Okay. Council Member Hansen, do you want to make any comments?
Well, first regarding the staggered term thing, I think this was a temporary committee, so I'm not sure that
Yeah, good point. Sorry.
that will be necessary. But I'm really excited about this committee. I think a lot of residents get frustrated with the Metro District situation, and I think the town bears some responsibility and some ability to help smooth over relations and help everybody get on the same page and understand both the costs and the benefits to how the town is allowing development to proceed. So I'm pretty excited to get to work with this committee.
Any other comments? Yes, Council Member Lake.
I just have, I guess part of me is a little bit concerned about having non-residents as voting members on it. And while I definitely think it's important to have somebody with that expertise and background, I was wondering if you've thought about maybe having them be a non-voting member of the group, just so that I know we also can approve who gets on that group, but just as kind of a thought, just so that it's the residents who are actually voting.
Councilperson Pearson, I'll come right back to you. Council, why don't you answer that, or you give your thoughts, Councilperson Hansen?
So I think the idea with the non-residents is if we want to include, yeah, like Robert said, if we want to include either developer or a manager. And I mean, the purpose of this committee is to kind of really improve that relationship between developers and residents of the town. And as far as like voting rights go, I mean, it's not, it'd be 1 to 2 votes. So, I mean, I wouldn't be concerned about developers controlling it or residents being able to run over people either. I guess I don't totally understand the concern of what would be the concern of what they would vote for that you would see as an issue.
Yeah,
I'd probably let Councilmember Lake respond to Councilmember Hanson's question, then I'll come. Let me get Councilperson Pearson, and then I'll hit Councilperson Collins. Go ahead.
I guess I don't have an answer to that because I'm not sure exactly what they will be voting on. So it's just, I guess, I typically have not seen municipal committees or things like that that have non-residents voting, is the only thing. And honestly, I don't know that it's a concern or not, but I just think I hate to set a precedence that we're having our local committees having people outside of our community as part of it, voting on it.
Okay. So, I mean, in this aspect, I think the developers are kind of our partners, the developers in the managing districts. They're our partners in the community. And just to give a quick high-level overview of what the committee I hope we can accomplish is, one, I want us to review the service plans. We set the service plan template that we use when we're establishing metro districts. And I think we need some of that expertise from the developer side to know what is workable from their end. And I'd also like to produce some educational materials on the website, some Metro District 101 type materials, as well as some materials that might help encourage residents to run for Metro District boards, and then to conduct outreach to help understand common resident questions and misconceptions and misunderstandings. So I don't see a lot of, I understand the precedent that's being set, but I think for the specific committee and the specific tasks we're looking at, I think it's a valid perspective to have included with an equal voice as part of the committee.
I'm definitely not saying they shouldn't be part of it. It's just that voting piece is, and it's not, I'm not saying it's a deal breaker for me either, but it's just more of that voting piece. I definitely think we need and want their expertise on it.
So, Councilmember Pearson.
And just one point of clarification, just because I think it may inform some of the other commentary. Just to reiterate that this committee would just be providing advisory recommendations to the councils. They wouldn't be passing any edicts or taking any action on behalf of the town other than providing recommendations that the town council would then consider and then vote on or not vote on.
Councilperson Pearson.
I was actually going to bring up another point. So if Councilman Collins wants to finish up on this point, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I was just going to, thanks, Aaron. I was just going to remind the group that this is an ad hoc committee. It's advisory, and hopefully it's a committee that will start the learning process on the MET districts within the communities. And I think it's important to have as many people at the table as possible. They're really not going to be voting on things. They're going to be bringing up. And remember, whatever's on your Metro District sheet of paper within those 4 corners, that's what you've got. So if there's ways we can encourage the developers to adjust those to make it where people feel like they're getting a better deal or getting more information or more transparency, the better off we're going to be. But it's ad hoc committee. It's just an advisory committee.
Councilperson Pearson.
I was just curious if I had over the weekend, I ran into I played golf with some people from Wild Wing. And I have a friend in Saratoga, and he asked me the same thing. And he was wondering, because they have both metro districts and HOAs there. And he was wondering, they don't feel like in their HOA boards that they have as much representation as they need, especially in the beginning process, when the developer has most of the control before it's ceded over to the towns. So I don't know if there was any way to add HOAs along with this and the metro districts, or if that point isn't a good one. I just wanted to throw it out for discussion.
Sure. Do you want to make any comments to that, Councilmember Hanson?
As of right now, I don't have a lot of firsthand knowledge of how the HOAs work in those neighborhoods. But if it's easy to include logistically with what the committee is doing, I think it'd be great for us to take a look at that. Particularly if it's intertwined with how metro districts are formed and whatnot. So I'd have to understand better that relationship. But yeah, if it's part of that whole dynamic, I'd like to take a look at that too.
I think
Yeah,
you guys-
thanks.
Go ahead,
Yeah, I think that because I know there was confusion in there between, well, what does the HOA do as opposed to what the Metro District does? Because I know both Saratoga and Wild Wing have both entities in there.
It's a great question, Councilmember Pearson. And here's the thing, and I think on that specific question is, Metro districts are so complex, I think, as far as trying to explain, because they're different. You know, people aren't used to knowing exactly how they work, that we might be throwing a whole bunch of weight onto that committee initially by having them look at both. On the other side, I could make the argument that, well, they're so intertwined that you almost need to have to understand both in order to come up with the right conclusion. And I think I'll leave that to you guys to keep discussing if you'd like.
And I've got one thought on that for the council too, that you may find a compelling enough point of distinction to want to separate these. In the Metro District context, the town has very clear authority as the approving jurisdiction under Title 32 to impose reasonable regulations in the form of its service plan that it approves. And once you get past that point, the town has much less an ability to control Metro District affairs, but there is very clearly a point at which the town has some statutorily recognized authority. In the HOA context, there's just not an opportunity like that for the town to approve the declarations in the same way that it approves the service plan. And there are I would argue that HOAs in some circumstances can have very, very complex structures as well. And so I agree with the mayor's point that it would be a lot to bite off and chew. And because the town is in a very different regulatory position vis-a-vis Metro districts versus homeowners associations, I think it could be a task that is unrealistic to take on with an anticipated October 31 recommendation date.
Okay. Well, my initial thought thanks, Robert. My initial thought then was, and hearing some of that, because I don't live in a Metro district that uses an HOA, so I'm trying to understand that relationship. But my first thought is, yeah, let's focus on the Metro districts. If we include like a paragraph somewhere in the stuff we put on the website, we can at least give a, contextualize how HOAs fit in, but it would be pretty minimal or peripheral to what we're doing.
I think you have a great comment there, Councilmember Pearson. Are you okay with us maybe going through the Metro District first and then maybe take a look at HOAs in a year or so?
Yeah, I'm good with that, because I think maybe it would be better to have them separated instead of having them all together. Yeah, that could be really maybe even more confusing for the answer to folks coming out. But yeah, but I appreciate you listening to my thoughts on that.
No, great comment. So Councilmember Lake, let's finish up with your comments on should we have a non-voting member for people that are not residents? And do you want to propose that as a suggestion for us to discuss, or what would you like to do?
Well, I don't think it needs to be just based on the fact that really they're just going to be providing some suggestions, advice, that kind of thing, and not really necessarily voting and things like that. So I don't think it's applicable at this point.
Okay, great. I think
I so move. I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Town Clerk Peter Garcia.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. before we go on, first off, I want to thank everybody on the council for this. I mean, a lot of work's gone into this. Thank you, Town Lawyer Rogers and the engineering group at PST for some of their ideas on this. And thank you to Christine Harwell for her comments on this. So it was a great team effort. And I'm really excited. This is such a great outreach of getting more people involved in town government and understanding what's going on, which will help us disseminate what's going on so people have a real transparent view of what's going on in our government. So I'd like to thank all of you and congratulate all of you for all your hard work and stuff on this. Next topic is just a discussion on police services design, an update from Brian Williamson, who's our town planner. So go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Mayor. I did just want to kind of go through the staff report. I think everybody's had a chance to review it, but just contextually, we have been working for about the last year and a half to begin the design process on the new police building. I'll call it police station. We had been working under with the assumption that we would be using the lot that had been originally purchased back in 2012. That is the third lot of kind of what we would call the municipal district, which is the town center, PFA Station 8, and then the potential future home for the police station. We have kind of been working through the programming efforts, and we are through schematic design on that. Earlier in the meeting, you guys saw in the packet that we did put out an RFP for a construction management general contractor firm, which we'll be interviewing here and bringing back to you guys in the next month or so. But so we are moving forward in the process. It has come up in some of our initial discussions in some onboarding information that we were giving to the new council members. We were talking about the site a little bit, and then there have been some feedback between, I believe, the developer of the Riverbend subdivision and the mayor about maybe some alternative sites that would happen in the Riverbend subdivision. So Mr. Harrison had proposed 2 different sites, and we read a letter that he had sent to the council into the record earlier in this meeting. His concerns were talking about the land uses in the Harmony Corridor, which I'll jump into in just a second here. But we did evaluate 2 sites that he had proposed. One was more central in his planned subdivision, which would be to the west of the town center. And that was a smaller site. It was about 1.5 acres, so it was about the same size as the site that we were working on now. Additionally, though, it had a couple of challenging aspects to it. It didn't have any direct right-of-way access. It was served through common drive aisles of a parking lot. It had a lot of other, I think there's about 7 other lots in that area as well. So we had some concerns about safety of our officers, safety of residents, and just generally what that shopping area would look like at things like the weekend or 2 weeks before Christmas, and how would our officers be able to get in and out of there efficiently, and just trying to make sure that we were able to secure the perimeter of that. The way it's currently envisioned, it's a very porous edges, where there's shared parking lots, and it's a retail subdivision, really. And so we had some concerns from a safety aspect of, this is going to need to be kind of hardened on our edges, so that we can protect both the people on the outside and the people on the inside. So it would kind of be a rock in the middle of the river for an analogy of how that would fit in there. So we, Police Chief Terry Jones and I kind of discussed that along with a couple other people, and we kind of ruled that site out initially. So we didn't include that in your packet because it was kind of didn't really make the first cut. So then we went into evaluating his second proposed site, which is just to the south of Stonefly, which is on the south side of the existing police station. So really just flopping that lot from the north side of Stonefly to the south side. That area is unplatted currently. So there is a there's plenty of space for us to enlarge the site if that was the desire. And really, you know, if we were to be looking at other sites, I think we would want to look at a larger site. I think we've shown that we were able to fit everything on the existing site. However, I do think there's been some concerns brought up about having enough public parking, having enough officer parking, you know, things like that would help with a slightly larger site. So we were evaluating that site, and then as we were working with the design team and kind of talking through it with staff, it was like, you know, are there any other sites, as we're kind of doing the site evaluation exercise, are there other sites that we should consider? And that's when the fuel site came up, the western edge of the fuel site, probably about 3.5 acres that are kind of between the existing access road and that new, and the Needham development there. It still kind of fits in that municipal corridor. It's going to be catty corner to the northeast of the existing town center, but it is a departure from kind of the assumptions that we had been making before. And so as we kind of looked at that, you know, we weighed that against the Southern Riverbend site, and really there was a lot more pros on the fuel site than there were on the Riverbend site, both from infrastructure that would be required, plating, that kind of process. Both sites would have a little bit of that, but the town, one strong benefit was the town was already kind of in control of the fuel property as the owner of that. We did hear also in the public comment section from Pat McMeekin, who is from Hartford Homes, and he did bring up a couple of things that we're aware of in his letter, mainly the requirement for the joint visioning, which, and I actually talked to Pat a little bit before this meeting. You know, I told him that we're really still trying to evaluate whether or not the site works. The preliminary kind of initial cut looks like it does, but we think it would be premature at this point to have engaged them in visioning prior to having some direction from the council, as this is probably, I mean, it's a pretty strong departure from our last discussion with council about where the site would be located. So we really felt like we needed to get some direction from the council on that prior to engaging anybody outside of staff or our contracted design team. And he was okay with that. He did want me to emphasize that they would not be supportive of that. And then he also brought up a second point that I think was kind of alluded to in his letter, but not necessarily spelled out. And that's there is a metro district over that entire subdivision, and there is a piece of that metro district that is carved out for the commercial. And then there are, in the agreement that we purchased, there are limits to the mills that can be required there, but there's also a provision that if one of the property owners was a non-tax-paying entity, as the town would be, that we would need to facilitate an agreement between that entity and the developer for making those metro district kind of encumbrances whole. Robert probably would be happy to jump in and correct my all my language on the metro districts here. But really they're planning on a certain amount of income from that metro district that we agreed to. So there would be a little bit of a backstop there that we would need to enter into agreement. And that would be just an annual payment that would equate to the assessed value mills that they would be requesting for that property. Is that a fair assumption, Robert?
Yeah, payment in lieu of taxes is what they're typically referred to as, and yeah, they're pretty commonplace and pretty easy to negotiate, at least theoretically.
Yeah. So, and in that agreement was included in the email that was sent out with the comments. So if you have any other questions about that, the agreement's there, and then I'm happy to discuss them in a less legal standpoint, and I'm sure Robert's happy to discuss them in a more legal standpoint.
Okay, so any comments? Oops, sorry. Are you still? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, Brian. Okay. Any comments, questions for Brian? Yes, Brett.
The payment in lieu of taxes, Robert. Typically, how long term are those? How long of a commitment is that? Roughly, I won't hold you to it forever.
There's two different ways you can structure them. You can structure it so that it coincides with the length of the bonds that the district enters into, the bond obligation, or you can structure it so that it's a lump sum payment and you apply some kind of net present value discount to it. You could structure it either way.
Any other questions, Brian? Yes,
Oh,
Sorry.
I've got
Pearson.
I've got quite a few comments on this one. I'm really disappointed as I was serving on this committee for about a year working with the staff. And it was very disappointing to me that I don't hear a word about this until the packet comes out. And then the packet goes out to the public on a Saturday of Memorial Day weekend. And here we are today on a Tuesday. So I just wanted to say, in the interest of transparency, that definitely does not look very transparent to me.
So just a second, Town Manager Wesley, would you like to comment on that?
No, I'm here. I'm just listening. You know, I think the purpose tonight is to just to gather input to look at if council has an interest in us more seriously pursuing this piece of property and all the other due diligence that comes with it.
Okay.
Well, I've prepared a written statement that I would like to put into the record, and I can read that now to us, and then go from there. But the one before I get to that, I wanted to bring up a point that that Hartford brought up in that letter that they wrote, that there was the possibility of maybe having some of the land from the senior housing that could be added to this site that would alleviate the issue of public parking and the other parking. I mean, wasn't that, what was the amount of land that they were talking about there from that? I know that that's been in the works for quite some time.
Yeah, we've been working with them kind of through their conceptual review process. So they haven't, Matt or Kevin can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think they've actually made an official submittal to the town. I think we've reviewed several concepts from them. And then in the initial meeting, we mentioned that we would be interested in acquiring some of this. So the amount of space, I think, has waffled between a half acre and an acre. And I'm not sure exactly where they are in their current concept, but it was a significant amount of space that we'd be able to incur or add to the site if that property did get developed under that developer.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Because I think that could make a difference in giving some extra space on that land that we could then utilize for the police building. To me, putting this on Harmony Road just seems like the absolute wrong idea. I've sat on two of the comprehensive plan update committees over the last 7 years, and this has been in the works for well before I was involved. And then to have this sprung up, I know that there's a lot of residents that are buying homes in that Hartford neighborhood, expecting that the police department's going to be where it said it was going to be, and not on that Harmony corridor. So we've also had plenty of public input opportunities at the open houses for people to make comments on this. So if we were to want to entertain this, I highly think that we should be engaging the public in it to be able to give comments on what they think is the right. And I think we also need to do a cost analysis of this. We were able to purchase this land way back in 2012. And if we go to sell it now, we're not going to see any of the appreciation that's been gained over the last 12 years. That's about a $400,000 loss. There's also the loss from the potential revenue that we would get from sales tax, not only us paying out to go to Hartford for the lack of their metro district, but also the loss of sales tax that we would not incur from prime corridor, Harmony corridor property. That it makes, to me, not a lot of sense financially to go this way. And I maybe if we wanted to explore a second option or some other option off of the Harmony corridor, but I mean, I think that both Craig Harrison and Pat McMeekin from Hartford both were very, very correct in their responses to what we're talking about here, that it's just not the right place to have the police department on this Harmony corridor that we've worked so hard for, and the council has worked hard for. There's 3 of us from the past council. We've worked hard on this to get the standards for that Harmony corridor very high. And I just don't feel that a police department is in the best interest to be on that corridor.
You said you had something you wanted to read into
Yep, I'll read it right now. So in 2012, the council purchased the current police station site along with the fire station and town center for the purpose of having a centrally located civic center. And that would be most responsive to the community. The council worked with Riverbend, Craig Harrison, to negotiate a very good price on that land, far below market value, in exchange for a timed construction of the lots. The fire station was first, of course, followed by the town center, and now the police station must start construction by August 1st of 2020, or the Riverbend property can be purchased back at a reduced price of $310,000, which is below today's value by, that's got to be worth at least $700,000. Moving the police station will result in the town losing all the appreciation the lot has gained over the last 8 years. Additionally, the police design team, which includes a police building expert, has been working on this for almost a year and has designed a 2-story building on the lot, which would meet the needs for the next 20 years. And for a reasonable price, which is budgeted for the entire build out. The equity in the property is our portion, and that would allow us to finance this entire construction at low rates and on a short term, similar to how we have done the town center. In February, the team shared with the council that the police buildings are difficult to add on to, like an office building. It's not like an office building that you can just tack more stuff on. It has critical functions, and construction costs are the lowest if we were able to do it now. And the rates are super favorable right now. So be able to build it all now is the most cost-effective way of doing it. Also, the financing rates are favorable. Sorry, I'm jumping around. This site has been identified for years in our comprehensive plan, like I had mentioned, and it's been promoted as the location in many open meetings with the public over the years. So now it doesn't seem right. The people that have purchased in there were thinking this was going to be the case. There are also financial and other reasons why it doesn't make sense to move it to the proposed location on Harmony. The 15-acre property on Hartford, as Pat McMeekin referenced, was purchased at a price so that the town could find the right developer to share the vision and put in the retail to spur that activity more quickly for Hartford to be able to give that back, and we could get that Harmony corridor going. As we all know, when we talk to the residents, how many times have we heard, when is more restaurants coming in? When is a grocery store coming in? This is our opportunity to do that. This made sense to Hartford because it would enhance their property, and the residents would want that attached to their neighborhood. We agreed to work with them together for the ultimate use of the property. And we also talked to them about the shared visioning that hasn't happened and would happen at that time has already been addressed. The Harmony Corridor is also identified as setting the stage for the whole town. That's what you see when you come in. So we set really high building standards for this to make sure everything was high caliber, such as the Neenan project. The Harmony Corridor is critical for our commercial development, and our plan was to make sure we sought the highest and best revenue and desired use for that land. A police building would not generate that revenue. In fact, if we did enter into an agreement with Hartford, the revenue would be going out the other direction and not coming in, because we would be helping to pay for their loss of revenue. So there would be definitely lost revenue in that. I put together a snapshot of the financial reasons that I don't agree with this. The loss of appreciation is about $400,000 that we would lose. The construction cost for a two-story building is cheaper than the cost of a one-story building. And if we were to add on later, then we would have construction cost increases. Look how much they've gone up in the last 5 years. Almost 40 to 50% the construction costs have gone up. So I'm not factoring that in there, but it's more effective to have the two-story building, plus the building's central function effectiveness would be lost by having the add-ons if we're doing it in pieces. So a rough estimate on that of what the changes might cost, assuming $450 a square foot, which is what they are talking about, is about $3 million. The lost sale of 15 acres of prime Harmony land to the town at a low market rate, even just $12 a square foot, is nearly $8 million. And most importantly, the loss of revenue for the property use, and the sales tax from a very prime commercial property, it's significant. although COVID's slowing things down now, it will come back. And we've had some interest in that already that has been vetted over the last 6 months. Looking at a 20-year timeline for the loss of revenue could easily be up to about $30 million in lost revenue over 20 years. So if you add all that up, we're looking at about $44 million of loss by having this be put on that prime property. So Melissa, if you're fine with that, I'm sure you couldn't take all that down, but I have it here in a Word document. I would be happy to send it to you so it can be part of the record.
Rick,
I've
Mayor
prepared
Pro
an
Tem
email to
Collins.
request that, Aaron.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Collins.
Yeah, I would just like to say that about several months ago, when we were looking at that police site, I talked to the police chief at that time, and she told me the lot was too small. I found out months later that to resolve that problem on the current lot that they're looking at, they decided to make it 2-story. We then found out a few months after that, the cost would be like $13 million. It would not be expandable and would only last for 20 years. So what I'm doing is just trying to find a site that maybe we can do it for a lot less money. And I'm talking about less than $10 million. We would have a building that'll last longer than 20 years and one that can be expanded if we want to. The site that we're talking about right now, about a year ago, I asked the council if they could give me some direction or give me clarification on exactly what we're going to do at that site. And they directed me to a concept book that they'd put together. I then read the concept book and went back to the council, and I asked a question to the council about the concept book. And the answer I received from the mayor was, it's just a concept, Mr. Collins. Anything can happen there. I never planned as far as being on the council and being a business of becoming a developer or subsidizing properties. And in the letter that was read earlier this evening from one of the developers, he said the intent when the town took that lot was to subsidize that with town money for development. That was never my intent to serve on a council where we're subsidizing for those kind of things. So I just want to see if we can find a site that'll work for everybody and create a police department that we're not going to have to start looking for a new site within 5 years after the old one or the new one's built, and a site that'll hold more than 10 traffic spaces for public. It just doesn't make sense. And I'll go back to the original police chief who said, Mr. Collins, the site's too small. That's all.
Council members Lake or Hanson, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so you know, I was comparing a lot the Firestone police station to the plans for our police station. The town of Firestone is quite a bit bigger than ours. I think it's 3 or 4 times the size of ours, and they just finished a new police station. It also includes a courtroom, and they spent about $16 million. That was the final cost that the voters approved for a bond. So it's financing costs and everything. And then, yeah, back in March, when we were looking at the old site, the price tag came in about $13.5 million, and that's today. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that that price would go up because that's how government building projects always go. And then once you factor in financing costs, it didn't make sense to me that we're paying an amount that's very comparable to a town many times our size. And so, I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs, the technical details of financial analysis of what it costs to build different designs of a police station, but something just was not adding up to me. And regarding the outreach, I mean, just to the general idea of the police station in general, I know both Mark and I made this a very vocal point during the campaign, and we got a lot of support for the idea of trying to look at different options for the police station. And I agree that outreach needs to continue. But this has not been something that just snuck up on the public. Between the two of us, I'm sure we talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people for months. And I think we're just looking at options, just like Brian Williamson said, we're looking at options. I think the idea of the Civic Center that was conceived many years ago was a nice idea, but I think it was done with a lack of full understanding and full experience of what it takes to build a police station, and we should be willing to be flexible and look for the best option for that facility. I think we can try and work with what works with our commercial corridors and development, but we really need to give our police officers a ability that works best for them.
Councilmember Lake, would you like to make any comments?
Sure. I don't have strong feelings on a particular site, I guess, other than in my own mind, I really saw Harmony as commercial. It's just kind of my own thought. Looking at the image that's in the packet, I mean, just without knowing anything else, the Riverbend site actually looks more appealing to me. But before actually being able to say any of it, I guess for me, I would really want to see what some of those numbers are, taking into account the fact that some design work has already been done on the current site, and you know, Aaron gave some numbers, but I'd like to kind of see what some of those numbers are as far as costs that would be lost by moving to a different site, as well as the cost of what it would take to be on those other sites as well. I don't think it's a bad thing to look at ways of reducing what it costs to build the police station. So for me, it would really come down to looking at some more detail as far as what all of that would look like. And as far as along Harmony, I don't know if that's just the vision I had in my head. Usually buildings like the town centers, police stations, fire stations aren't quite on that main corridor. So that's the only thing that is not necessarily appealing to me to put it on that particular site. But I also understand that if the current site is not right for what we want to do, or is increasing the cost of what we want to do, then I think we need to look at other options.
I'll wait. Town Manager Wesley.
Sorry, go ahead and make your comments if you want to, Mayor, and then I have a proposed idea for the council to consider.
Okay. So, you know, I heard all your numbers, Councilmember Pearson, and there's like you were using 12 acres as a decrease. This is only going to be 3 acres. Sales tax being decreased. Has anybody seen any retail go along Harmony in the last 10 years? And the answer is no. There's been no retail at all on Harmony in the last 10 years. If we think all of a sudden that we're going to have a bunch of retailers wanting to develop on that property, we aren't looking at the current economy. I mean, it doesn't take too long to see what COVID did, that it basically destroyed the retailers. And there are not going to be retailers coming in. The site that's one of the best sites right next to it to the west has sat there for 15 years with no development. Yet they've tried and tried and tried to sell that. This site will maybe jumpstart and I don't care what site, I'm with you, Councilmember Lake, I don't care what the site is. I do agree that at 1.5 acres makes no sense. And if we sit there and build, and I made this comment while we were talking to a number of people, that I'm not going to stick the next mayor and the next council with a white elephant. And that's what will happen in 20 years, because in 20 years, we'll outgrow that building. And in 20 years, you can't sell a police station. So all of a sudden, we've created 14 million, 10 million, whatever number you want to throw at it, and it's worth 0. Whereas if we put it on a site that'll work, and I don't care what site that is, that site can expand so that it can control the growth of this town in 30 years. I think the mill levy extra that'll go on this site or any other site is a minor, it's sort of chump change type of thing that should be figured in on the computation, but it won't be very much money at all. And the cost savings of having an adequate site that can then be expanded into a bigger site if it's needed, or a bigger location if it's needed, will offset any of the extra costs that are involved in that. So I don't care. I'm much with Council Member Lake. I don't care what the site is, but I do think we step back, take a look and say, what's the best choice? And let our experts, Town Planner Williamson, to come back to us and say, here's our suggestion on that site. And again, this site might jumpstart Harmony rather than cause a problem, because all of a sudden it'll be the first building since the Neenan building has gone up on Harmony. And as any developer will tell you, you begin by putting something, it'll grow, it'll create other growth. The easy way to take a look at that is look at Timberline Road. Nobody was along Timberline Road on the north of Drake. They put the police station in, and all of a sudden there's 30 at least little drive-ins and Burger Kings and everything else along there that it helped sit there and initiate. So it can actually initiate retail development rather than stifle it. And I think if both McGeechan and Harrison spent some time and put a sharp pencil to it, I think they will come to the same realization also. But that's a developer talking also, which are smart people. Town Manager West.
Thank you, Mayor. So I appreciate all the input. I know this is this topic's been kind of percolating. One of the things I think it's critical I think that might be helpful for the council, if it's your pleasure, is town staff can actually take this analysis and take it to a further step. And I can let Brian kind of speak to this. One of the options that if council should give us direction is for us to actually take a pause and then to actually do a full-blown site analysis where we actually then establish a lot of criteria and then just do a more exhaustive study. If you think that intentionality or that purpose or that effort would actually help your decision-making process, we could look at some of the numbers that have been brought up tonight. We could do some comparison data, some cost-benefit analysis, a much more elaborate pro-con. Now, it does mean that we, obviously the schedule would stretch out, but from my own 2 cents and my perspective, I think there's some merit sometimes in just pausing a little bit and saying, hey, what if we just said, let's get this right? Because this, picking a site's going to have a lot of sway on what kind of building or what kind of building options or alternatives or constraints or opportunities that might exist. So if it's the council's pleasure, staff could bring back to you, I think, and Brian, wave me off the cliff before I drag him with me here, but we could bring back to you a more robust and more comprehensive plan that might actually that would involve a full-blown site analysis. So I'll stop kind of meandering there. Brian, do you want to comment about a little bit like what that might look like? And then the council could say, yes, we like that, or no, we want to go a particular direction. And then finally, we want to make sure we have a head nod on our concept with getting a GC on early so we can actually begin to get some really good data on construction costs. So Brian?
Yeah, I think that would be, we can definitely do that. I think my question would be, would we want to entertain other sites outside of the, obviously I think the one that we determined is not suitable because of the location that's located to the west of the town center. So right now we would have 2 sites. One would be the South Riverbend site and then the fuel site. Is there a desire, I think, for us to go further and try to identify other sites that would be in the town that would fulfill this need as well, or do we want to stick to those two?
So, town planner, Mayor Pro Tem Collins, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, look at all our options right now. If we're going to take a time out, let's look at everywhere where we might have an opportunity to help ourselves. We don't want to get this wrong.
I reiterate that, town planner, and I think you take a look at all the sites. The one thing I would suggest is I know that the police chief Jones is concerned about that we stop and don't keep pushing along on trying some progress, and I think that's a good concern on his part. So could I ask you a question, Brian? How long do you think it would take your group to come up with a thorough, but not exhaustive, let's say? We're not that big a town, so there can't be that many sites, that you could come up with a thorough analysis of the best site for the police station?
I think that we'd probably be looking at the June 23rd meeting.
Okay.
It would be challenging, I think, for us to do a comprehensive look for the June 9th meeting, just because, that's our draft packet's about a week away for that.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, no, that makes tons of sense. So town manager has suggested that we do a comprehensive study of sites in Timnath, that you have informed us that if given to June 23rd, you could accomplish that task. With those thoughts, does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Collins.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, let's look at finding a site that's big enough to handle either a double story or a single story. I know that I read the same articles that says it's cheaper to build going up, but that's usually for an office building. That's not usually for a police station, because of the ingress and egress hallway difference in that. It's usually a lot easier, and I see a lot of police stations in small towns across the country that are single story, so they can have entry points in multiple places on the building. So one guideline I would look at is to make sure we have a big enough lot for either a 2-story or a 1-story, whatever one we need, kind of deal. So we're comparing apples to oranges, apples to apples instead of apples to oranges.
Yep, I think there'll be, I'll work with Chief and our design team to kind of develop what the criteria list would look like. I mean, it's going to have a certain size requirement. I think we'd be in the 2.5 to 3 acres if we want to consider a single story and a double story. There'll be access requirements. There'll be how it's located, based on our current population centers and our future population centers, things like that. So
one other thing, Wes, maybe a question for you, Wes, and the mayor is, I know the prior administration did get a chance to tour the Firestone facility. It might behoove us, for those of us who didn't get a chance to see that facility, to go down and take a look at that at some point.
Rick, you were invited to that, by the way.
No, I wasn't, by the way.
Yes, you were. I can find the email. So.
Well, find it.
So I'm glad, we're glad to set that up. I think I sent an email out maybe a couple of days ago encouraging those who want to participate. I think our design team can still get us access. I believe, I don't want to speak out of turn here, Brian, but I think we could probably still get some access to Erie, maybe even Johnstown. I was in conversations there with the town manager a while back. So I think there's a couple different sites, including, I think, Firestone, if that's of interest. I encourage that. I mean, I know you guys, give a lot of your time to this council, to this effort, but to the extent that you can create opportunities inside your schedule, I just think there's nothing like walking through it and having somebody point out the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, what worked well, what they would do different. There's just, I don't know, I'm kind of a visual guy. So for me in particular, it makes a lot of sense to see, smell, touch, and ask those kinds of questions. So I think Brian could work with our design team, and we could certainly set up a sandwich and lunch tour if that's of interest to the council. So please let either myself or Brian know if that's of interest, and we'll get that queued up. Mayor, just with your permission too, as we work through some of these site analysis issues, and we start developing that criteria, if we run into, it just takes a little bit longer, I'd rather be just a little bit thorough. So I'm not asking for a lot of wiggle room, but if it were to drift into the first part of July, so we can actually come back with something that's not going to set the whole schedule back up on its head for long periods of time. But I really want staff, I guess I'm being a little protective of staff here just for a second. I really want staff to do a good job, and I want us to be able to provide information so there's good discussion, and so they can be vetted in a way that's very thorough. But yet, like you said, we haven't lost 6 months or something crazy like that. So with yours and the council's permission and prerogative, I'm going to create just a little bit more windows should Mr. Williamson need it. We'll do everything we can to hustle it back here in June. We certainly want you guys engaged on this. We need to buy in order to move forward on the design, and at some point we're going to be tussling probably over financing. And this journey is going to have some legs and twists and turns, but the first of which is going to be the site issue. So again, just with your permission, I'd like to navigate that. I think it's really critical. Brian hit the point. Establishing that criteria gives us the way to vet this, because otherwise we're all just going to stand around with one eye closed and kind of going, well, maybe a little bit of this and maybe a little bit of that. But if we can have a little bit of criteria established, that certainly helps on the staff end as we weigh those pros and cons.
So first off, Brian, you set a date that was quicker than I thought. So I was waiting for somebody to jump in and say, give him some more time. So I appreciate your enthusiasm and optimism there. Totally. Good job.
Well, I appreciate Wes bailing me out.
That's right. Here's sort of what I got as a summary. We'll do head, nod, or check, but that we agree that let's do a site evaluation, that we charge town planner to do that site evaluation, that he comes back to us sometime. He's going to shoot for June 23rd, but if that doesn't happen, then 2 weeks later. And at that point, we will review his recommendations on a site and give a vote or a very clear distinction of how to proceed forward. So I think we've got 4. I don't know. Do you agree with that, Council Member Pearson, or not?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yes.
Okay. So I think we got all of us are in total agreement with that. So Brian, you got your marching orders, so take her away. Good discussion, good comments. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, wait, we got a roll call. Sorry. I'm gonna put you to work again, Melissa. Roll call now.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Suka.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Good
Thanks,
meeting.
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.